Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night, the podcast where we talk about the romance novels that'll get you all hot and bothered. Today, we're chatting about a book with one of the best concepts I have ever heard, a rabbi and a sex worker falling in love in the intimacy experiment by Rosie Danan. I'm joined by my good friend Taylor to chat about this book, and we have an absolute blast. Please consider leaving us a rating and review while you're listening, and enjoy the show. Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of We Read It One Night. Once again, we're joined by an amazing guest host. This time, it's my friend Taylor, who y'all have not met before, but I'm going to let Taylor introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Taylor. I know Allison because we went to high school together. And I don't know what's relevant to know about me. I just graduated law school. That's fun.
Woo, yeah.
I'm not a romance novel reader, so this is going to be like a really interesting. I feel like some of it would be my surprises of like how romance novels are structured in general. But yeah, a very raw, honest take, probably.
Taylor's dogs are barking, listener, just letting you know. They're not, I don't hear them right now, but they may start again. They're very cute. They're the small little white dogs. One of them is a puppy, and they're all related.
They're all related. They all look identical. It's like you've cloned your dog 2 times.
It's really great. So if you hear them, that's what they are. I know that we're like a cat-centric podcast, but like we like dogs too. And frankly, like Addie, my cat, has scratched enough times at the door while we recorded. Like
Pepsi's met Addie, so that's fun too.
That's true. I did dog sit one of the barking dogs, Pepsi. The cats and him did not get along.
Hard time.
Not insofar as they fought, but like Evie just hid under the bed for the whole week, and Addie was like squaring up every time he came within a foot of her.
Right. And Pepsi's the nicest of our dogs, so.
Yeah. Okay. So today we are doing the Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. I didn't check the author. That's the author? Yep.
That's the author. That is her.
Ooh,
yes.
I didn't check her before. But this book is about a former sex worker who currently runs like a sex education empire and a rabbi. And when I sent a list of books for Taylor to choose with like short descriptions, and this was on it, she was like, I don't know why you sent me anything else.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's a rabbi and a sex worker, and it's gonna be, that's gonna be the one for me. And honestly, no regrets. I definitely picked correctly. This was a great gateway novel for me because I'm Jewish. I love Judaism.
Yes.
I love thinking about Judaism. There's some themes of that. I love queer things. I love thinking about sex positivity. It was, it hit the marks.
Yeah, I'm glad. I thought you would like it. I was like, this seems up Taylor's alley. I don't just send anyone the same books, I try to curate the list. I used to send people like a list of 20 books, and then they got overwhelmed. So I picked
20
like 4.
The list was good for me, the 5 or whatever.
Yeah, she's also bisexual, and they're both Jewish. Obviously, the rabbi at the beginning is the only Ethan, is the only practicing Jew. But I thought there was like a lot. I mean, obviously, I've read books with like other with Jewish protagonists before, and like we've done them on the podcast. But I felt like this really sort of got in, like you really got a lot of details about Judaism that people who aren't Jewish don't know as much. Like it wasn't just like Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, like that, the high holidays.
No, they definitely really got into it. I feel like one of the things that I was taking away from it the whole time was I was like, a Jewish person obviously wrote this. And like you could tell in terms of like how the themes run throughout, and just some of it was interesting because some of it I was like, interesting. I don't know if that's what I would think about it. But then a lot of it was just like the way that tradition was embedded, the way that like different values were talked about, definitely felt to me like it was incorporated into the plot, not just like a character trait that they say and never talk about.
Yeah, I really liked that.
Yeah.
And I felt like even though like obviously like I was raised Christian, but I was like, I feel like this is like healing my inner religious child a little bit. Like, like what's going on? here. More so like
Definitely.
at the first, because I'd read this before and I didn't have that feeling the first time.
It hit also because I feel like, so on the one hand they have the whole thing going on with religion and like, Naomi slash Hannah, the protagonist, her
Yeah.
her whole struggle with religion. But then on the other hand, they have the whole thread going on about like relationships and like how to have healthy relationships. And for me,
Yeah.
that was hitting. Like the ending of the book hit me hard. Like,
Oh, absolutely. Literally. Okay, so the premise of the book is that like Ethan gets Naomi to teach like a modern intimacy course like at his synagogue because he's trying to like recruit the youth and like, get the youth to come to his synagogue. And I normally don't love when books have like long scenes where it's one character like teaching or like giving a
mm,
speech or something because I just like feel like they're hard to do well. But this time I was like, I want to take this. Is this
yeah,
course
I was
real?
like, can I take the class?
Like
Like,
Rosie Danan, did you base this on something? Because I would like to take that course. Thank you.
no, I was literally legitimately taking notes on some of her lectures.
Yeah.
Because I was, yeah. Well, and I think it's also really interesting the way that, like, she has her lecture moments, but then he's also obviously the main rabbi at the synagogue. And so he
Yeah.
also has his little sermon-like things that are embedded in there. And so there's a lot of
Yeah.
knowledge, like a lot of messaging that's happening.
Yeah. A lot of like unpacking of a lot
Yeah,
of like it's not I feel like it's presented in a way not like the author being like you should think of it this way, but like here's an interesting way to think about it that you may not have
right.
thought before, which was really cool. And this is the second book in a series, but you don't have to read the first book, which I know for sure, unlike other times that I've said you don't need to read the first book, because I read this one first and I wasn't
Ah,
confused. So I was like, I know you don't have to read the first book.
you definitely, yeah. I had a friend who was reading this book out loud with me for part of the time because I like to co-read. And she was like, "Wait a minute, I know Shameless. Like I know about this book, but I haven't read this book." So I guess she had read the other book in the universe.
So I started this book immediately ready to fight anyone who was mean to Naomi ever. I was
Mm,
like, I nope, ready. Like she obviously can fight herself. Like we have a scene in which she demonstrates that she can't fight. But I was like, I'm there as backup. Like I'll be in the background, like bouncing, give him the old one too.
yes, no, definitely it starts out from a place of you being like, okay, Naomi has clearly seen some stuff in her life and is has some big walls up, and
Oh
is
yeah.
like badass and cool, but also a little bit guarded. So for me, I spent a lot of the time being like, what happened to her? Like, what is the context for this? But also very relatable, like relatable to like
Yeah.
put walls up like that. So yeah, I also was in her court from the beginning.
Yeah. And yeah, I was like, is this me? Like, am I being called out here? Because I feel like I'm being called out a little bit. She does have this monologue in the beginning where she's talking about how she's a grenade in life or whatever. Like she likes to challenge people. And like I was like all for that. And then she was like, I also like to like step up right to the edge of like things that can hurt me. And she like says something about like a cigarette, like as part of like that metaphor. And like fully understand that, but was also violently reminded of Augustus Waters from The Fault in Our Stars, where he's like, you put the thing between your mouth that has the power to kill you, but you don't let it kill you.
Wow.
I was
Yeah,
like,
I could
I
see it.
am violently reminded of John Green that book.
I feel like the other metaphor that happened in the beginning that I was like, I spent a long time in the beginning trying to figure out the names because so
Yeah.
she has like, okay, so she's introduced as Naomi Grant, but then we're very quickly told that she like has her original name is Hannah Sturm. Is that how you think you say that?
Stern. Is it Stern?
Sturm.
Does it? I only listened to it. So is it an N or an M?
It's an M, I
Okay,
believe,
so
and it's spelled,
Sturm.
yeah. Yeah. And so the whole time I was trying to figure out the metaphor of like I think she's like a superhero is like the metaphor that they start things
Yeah.
out with. And so to me, I was thinking like, well, who is the original person? Like, is she gonna take off the mask? Is this gonna come full
Yeah.
circle? Which I do feel like it does. Like it does kind of come full circle. But
Yeah.
um yeah, an interesting start to have two names for the protagonist like
Yeah.
that.
and very much referred to as two different people, like throughout most of the book. Like they're like Hannah Stern is like a young teenager that like, you know, is different than Naomi. But I also think that it's good. I really like that. I mean, by the end, she doesn't, it's not like she goes back to being Hannah Stern.
Right.
You know what I mean? She doesn't be called that, which is like good because it's like, you know, like what she chose to do isn't bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there were just some reasons that needed to be unpacked.
Right. Yes. Yes, exactly. I will just say also this book totally takes place in LA, and I've been
It does.
living in
It says
LA.
it takes place in LA.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I've been living in LA for the past 2 years,
Oh,
and I think they did a very good job of the like layout of LA. Like they're in West Hollywood. They
yeah.
go like, yeah. I, I would just throw that in there that
I don't know whether Rosie Danan lives in LA.
she must have been.
So we meet Ethan, and my note for Ethan is that Ethan is not like other rabbis. TM.
That is exactly the point of yes.
Like not in a bad way,
Right.
but like I feel like we even get close to the phrase "not like other rabbis."
No, all the
some...
time it's like non-traditional, like unimaginable, like on the fringe.
Yeah,
And I'm like, yeah, I get it. I get it. He's alternative. He's woke. Like,
yes, yeah. He's Reform Judaism, but he's also
yeah,
like very liberal, even within Reform Judaism, which,
right.
from my understanding, is like the more like liberal.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, like in Judaism, we have not to like explain the whole thing, but I feel like people generally don't necessarily know this, that we have different like
No, yeah,
sects of Judaism. And so reform would fall more on the side of the traditions are there, but you should interpret them as you will. And we take some things and we leave some things. And not all Reform Jews like do every Shabbat or keep kosher. It's a mix of different things versus like conservative Judaism or Orthodox Judaism. You like do all the things, almost all the things.
yeah,
So yeah, it is more like loose in terms of that. And I feel like it makes sense why a Reform synagogue would have these workshops. Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, he's still like supposed to be like not like other rabbis, which I think is funny because in my head, like Reform Jewish rabbis are like lefty, queer, or trans people who like run like fun workshop. Like I'm like
I
this actually would
mean,
be totally this would be
he's
like my
straight, but
shul.
otherwise, right on the money.
Yeah, I'm like
Like,
this could be my shul. I don't know.
yeah,
I feel like he does have a little bit of a complex where he thinks that he's like super different in a way that maybe he's not as
yeah,
different as he thinks he is.
yeah. Yeah, I think that's also that kind of comes up a lot more because there is tension. There's still tension within his synagogue that,
Right.
you know, there's like the older, because most of them are like older people, most of the
Mhm.
members. So there's a lot of them being like a porn star teaching classes. What are you doing? Like,
Yes.
so I feel like he has to sort of activate the not
Right.
he has to like drink the not like other rabbis Powerade a lot
Mhm.
to like juice up.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like he's also just very genuine. Like his whole thing is like he's just like a good guy.
Oh yeah.
Not in a slimy way, but in a like very genuine kind of naive
Yeah.
way.
He's a
At least
golden
that's
retriever.
yeah.
Yeah. He's a golden retriever man. Like,
Right.
and she's a black cat. And I love it. Like I
Yeah.
love like he's the golden retriever puppy that the family just bought and the established black cat is like, what the fuck have you brought into my house? And then a month later they're cuddling and that's it.
So I'm hearing that if we had let Pepsi stay at your house, Pepsi is my dog, for another month, maybe your cats would have started to like
No,
him.
no. Evie might have not been afraid of it, but Addie would have been ready to square up at all
Okay.
times.
Okay. Okay. I tried.
She's ready to fight. That's why she stays so fat because she's
Mm,
like dense, and so she can like throw herself at things.
amazing. Yeah, but so Ethan is like he's very dedicated to his congregation.
Yeah. And he didn't like grow up wanting to be a rabbi. Like he was a physics teacher, like a high school physics teacher. And then his dad died and he like turned to faith. But also I
Right.
think it was funny that he was like, honestly, like at the beginning, like I just really liked school. And so like
Yeah.
rabbinical school was just an opportunity to go back to school.
Which honestly, I feel that really hard as someone who's like always been in and out of Jewish education, but doing other things. I'm always like, well, I could see it happening. Like it's a great fallback
You
option.
just fall into being a rabbi.
You could just fall into it. It's one of the happiest careers in terms of,
Is it?
like working for like a clergy or religious institution. Yeah.
Oh wow. It's like all like religious institutions, not just Judaism.
I know about Judaism, but I would imagine it could be transferable.
Try to think about whether Christianity, like I don't know
I don't
whether
know anything about
priests, I don't know
Christianity.
whether that appeals to priests. Well, speaking of Christianity, it's Ethan gave me very much youth pastor vibes, but not in like
Ah,
the horrible religious trauma youth pastor vibes that like ex evangelicals like me have.
mhm.
But just in like he's like cool and like he's your friend and he's like hey
He's
like give it to
relatable.
me, yeah. He's also a short king, he's a short king, which we love because that never happens in romance novels. It's
Right.
very rare. And we get explicitly like not only does he describe himself as short, but Naomi is also like I would definitely be taller than him if I wore heels, which implies that they're like the same height. And I was
Hmm.
like, we love to see it because, especially nowadays, because I mean, this is a tale as old as time for romance novels where you have like big man hero, small, tiny girl.
Mm.
His like hands can span her waist. Like it,
Oh,
like
it's
that's
not
how
that
big he is.
vibe. It's
No,
not
it's
that
not that. But
vibe.
I'm saying that's a
Mm.
tale as old as time. And it's really come back with a vengeance in contemporary romance right now.
Mm. Which is also just like, I will say, like, as a queer person reading romance, I think one of the reasons that I haven't read romance novels is because a lot of them are straight. And I
Yeah.
understand that now there's a lot more out there, and I think that's
Yeah.
great. And I'm a big fan of the television shows that span from the queer romance novels. But those types of narratives of like big man, small woman, like to
Mm-hmm.
me, not only is it like overused, but it's actively boring. Like, because those are just not things that I think
Because
about in my
they're
day
not
to
for
day.
you. Yeah.
They're not for me, but this felt for me. And then I was like, yeah, this is just like two people coming together with their different issues. And like they're both full characters and we can just learn about them. And so this
Yeah.
one actually, even though it's like, okay, Naomi is bi, but like this is about her and a man, to me
Yeah.
was way more interesting than I expected it to be.
Yeah. And I mean, listen, like I personally, there are sometimes when I'm like, I am in the mood for a large man and a tiny lady fighting and making out. Like that's what I want.
Right,
And
right.
but sometimes I'm like, okay, can we
Enough's
get
enough.
something new? Because like, I mean, that's the thing with tropes is like tropes they're such a big part of romance and they're really great because they tell you exactly what you're going to get. Like if I
Hmm.
give you a book and I'm like, it has these tropes, you could be like, oh, I want to read it because I know that I like those. But also because of that, because they're so common and like familiar,
Right.
if you don't add your own spin to them, it gets boring really quickly. And
Definitely.
also just
Yeah.
like straight romance gets boring really quickly because there's so
Yeah.
much more of it.
Okay, wait, to circle back to this Ethan Rabbi thing,
Yeah.
I will say that like it also stretches to his like dynamic with his family and his dynamic with dating, where he thinks that no one will want like the thing that I thought was a little bit maybe silly, maybe interesting, was he was like, no one's gonna understand how to date me because I'm a rabbi, or like there's these big expectations for whoever I date because I'm a rabbi. And I felt like his sister, Leah, did such a good job of like kind of making fun of him for that. Like
Yeah.
there was one time, like on page 41, where she was like, Ethan's afraid of dating. He's worried no one will ever understand him now that he's a rabbi. And I just like literally am like, that's a funny sibling dynamic. And also like, yeah, it is a little silly. Like I think
Yeah.
So
He
yeah,
has like a lot of insecurity about being around because he's like so new to it and he didn't grow up like practicing,
right, right.
consistently.
Yeah.
But I can also see, I don't know, like if I met someone and they told me that they were something like a member of the clergy, especially like the member of a clergy who like is the head of like the
Mm.
religious place that they are head
Hmm.
of. I feel like I would be a little bit like, okay, well, what does that mean for me? Like, do I
Yeah.
need to convert? How active do you expect me to like be
Mm.
in that? Would I have to help you organize events? Would I have to like host Shabbat every Friday? Like
Hmm.
what would you need me to do? So
That's
like
fair. I see that. I guess because I'm Jewish, maybe I was like, well, I feel like
You're like, I do this anyway. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't do it that much, but I'm like, I think also just because I'm like, it's reform, the reform.
Yeah.
Reform, you know, like it is kind of squishy. Like you can do a little
Yeah.
bit of, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I wouldn't immediately like cancel, like discount someone,
right. No, but
if
it
I
will
was
be a
into
big
them, but I
thing.
would be like, okay, well, what does that mean? Because that's not like a regular, it's not
Yeah.
a regular job. Like they don't just have a 9 to 5 office job
Right.
that's like pretty separate from like
It
your
is part of
personal
your life. It is
relationship.
part of your personal life
Yeah.
and your personal relationships. Yeah. Which,
Yeah.
you know, honestly, like it's kind of funny that it's kind of interesting that that's the dynamic because on the other hand, I feel like Naomi's job is also very like she's no longer like participating in active sex work, but she's still a sex work educator.
Yeah.
And I feel like oftentimes the conversation around like dating or like having romantic relationships with sex workers is like it's part of your personal life, so I don't know if I can
Yeah.
incorporate it. So it's interesting to kind of flip it the other way like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I had a thought later. I forget where my note is for this, but like I was like, they on the surface are like so different, but like they have the same internal wound. Like
Yes.
they're the
Yes.
same, even though their backstories are also incredibly like
Yes.
I was like, damn, look at you healing each other and understanding each other. Okay, yeah. So they meet at like a conference and he comes up to her and she thinks he's hitting on her. He's like, I have a proposition for you. And she's like, excellent. He's hot. We're gonna go fuck. This is great.
Absolutely.
But he's just like, no, I want you to teach her my synagogue. And she's like, oh my God, no, I can't. Like religious childhood trauma, can't do it. And but later on, she's like thinking about him. She's like, oh, like he's trying to like lead me down the path of righteousness or something. Like he's trying to like I'm gonna be like
Mm.
converted or whatever. And all I could think was in the Emperor's New Groove. Stay with me here.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
Kronk
Yeah.
and how he has the two little like the angel and the devil.
Yes.
And like the
Yes.
devil at one point is like, he wants you to go on the path of righteousness. I'm trying to lead you down the path that rocks.
Wait, I remember that scene. Like I actively
Vividly.
remember that scene. Yes.
It's a great scene. And you know
Yeah.
what? Ethan is both leading her down the path of righteousness and the path that rocks because
Yeah.
you don't expect it, but Ethan's like a little bit of like, he has a little bit of a dominant side in the bedroom. Like he's not a dom, but like you're like,
Yeah, he
oh,
kind of
sir.
once I feel like he's very concerned about making sure that he's very concerned in the beginning, especially about like this being a professional relationship and making sure that
Oh,
she
yeah.
feels respected and not like crossing any lines. But then when he starts to like her, I feel like he's like, well, that would be insulting of me to like bring that up because I'm sure she gets that all the time.
Yeah.
But once like all the doors are opened and like it is clear that she does want that, like he is, yeah, like he's not like whatever about it. He's in.
He's rolling up the sleeves. He's
Yeah.
like, all right, like,
And
let's
he
get
made
down to
that very
business.
clear to her. Like he was very much like, I want to make very clear to you that this is not gonna be like me. He's been like, I want to fuck you, and I want to make that very clear
Yeah.
later.
Yeah. He's like, with your consent, I would
Yes.
like to dick you down,
Right. Like,
please.
yes. Like I'm not because she was like, wait, well, going back to the whole like, what does it mean to date a rabbi thing? She literally was like, so do you want to not have sex till marriage? Or like she kind of expected that, which
Oh,
I was
yeah.
cracking up about.
Yeah, wait, is that a thing in Judaism? Like this no
Of
sex
course,
before
yes.
marriage?
In Orthodox Judaism, yes, yes,
Okay. Well,
absolutely.
I would expect it from Orthodox, but
And
yeah.
some conservative Jews for sure, yes. Like I have friends who are conservative Jews who got married when we were like 19 or 20, so that
Uh-huh.
that could
They could
happen.
vote.
But in Reform Judaism, absolutely not at all. Like
Okay.
I've never met an actual Reform Jew who would do that. I mean, maybe people do, and I just don't. I mean, you might not know, but in general, no, that's not a thing.
I mean, like, I mean, I know Jew. I don't know like a ton of Jewish people. I'm not part of the Jewish community the way that you are, but like, I feel like none of the Jewish people that I met are like, yeah, I'm waiting until marriage.
No, that would be like very novel.
Which is interesting because I think Hannah was like she grew up Reformed Jewish. Like her mom, so her mom's Quaker, which is like
Hmm.
a whole insecurity of hers, and then her
Right.
dad's Jewish. But like, so it seems like it doesn't seem like she grew up Orthodox. Like she grew up
Right. No,
Reformed
it seems like
Jewish.
maybe she would know that, like to the extent that I kind of marked it and was like, this might be not, this is maybe a little unrealistic to think that,
Yeah. Maybe it's just because he's a rabbi. She's like, I don't know if you just take things
Yeah.
more seriously because you're a rabbi.
It could be that. It could be that because you know there are Reform Jews who like keep kosher and do a lot of the things. It's just like not everyone does.
All right. All right. All right. Yeah, but I love that their whole vibe, speaking of like romance tropes, like their vibe feels very much like a gender bent version of like the rake slash wallflower dynamic in historical romance, which
Say
I
more.
don't know if you learned what those were from Bridgerton, but okay, so the rake is
I'm
basically
wait.
like
I'm still in Bridgerton, so no spoilers.
no, this isn't a spoiler. This is like a
Okay.
classic historical romance
Good.
trope.
Good.
This
Good.
is
Good.
classic. The rake slash wallflower, like the wallflower is like the shy girl who's like overlooked. Like she's usually like 24. Oh my God, she's
Okay.
so old in like historical, like she's on the shelf, like she's shy. She doesn't get invited to dance. That's why she's called a
Right.
wallflower. And then the rake is like the sexy, like Lothario man whore. Like, and then their dynamic of like he's like, you know, teaching her to like
Mm.
come out. It's interesting because I feel like that was the dynamic at the beginning, and then obviously you're like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
Eden is not a wallflower, but at the beginning
Yeah.
I was like, it was cool to see a gender bent version of that because I feel like that's very rare. It's very rare that you get like the Lotharia and
Right.
like the wallflower of man.
Definitely. Yeah, and I do feel like I think that it's also realistic in that I'm like, yeah, like if I had a crush on someone who like talks about and thinks about sex as their daily job, I might be a little intimidated in thinking about having sex with them.
Mm-hmm.
Like it makes sense to me like why he would be a little, and I also just think like his character is a little bit more reserved, not in a way that he thinks what Naomi's doing is like negative in any way, but just that like he like that's not his personality. And
Yeah,
so yeah, that dynamic definitely comes across. And
yeah,
I do feel like it is kind of dismissed later when they actually
yeah,
start having a relationship.
yeah. Yeah, because like he's been trying so hard to be professional this whole time. And this book is also like a slow burn. Like they don't
It's a big
fuck
slow burn.
until the end, which is really interesting because so the first book is like a lot hotter in terms of like the
Mm,
number of sex scenes and the number of sex scenes like early, which is interesting. And like I don't know, like I know why like it makes sense that like Naomi and Ethan didn't like get physical earlier because like she has like the sex worker past and you really want to like establish the foundation of like that's not what this is for him. But then
hmm
it's interesting because the first book is Josh and Clara, and Josh is a former sex worker, like Naomi's like co-star slash
hmm
ex-boyfriend. But they like very quickly kind of start.
Yeah, I definitely remember being like more than halfway through the book by the time
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, now we're gonna start with this. And even that part was a slow burn. But yeah, there was a big tonal shift. Like the first half of the book literally is just like an understanding of them as people and their jobs and like they're
Yeah.
building these workshops.
Yeah. It very much is like a friends to lovers
Yeah, like a
situation.
co-workers slash friends. So, yeah. Which honestly it's kind of hot, like the idea that like he's like, oh, I can't, like we couldn't
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we got to keep it professional. Like it's a
Yeah.
yeah,
Which is
it's good.
so much harder to do in contemporary than it is in historical romance. Because historical romance is like, I can't be alone with him because then I'll be ruined. But like,
Mm,
it's so much harder to say why they can't be together in contemporaries because you're just like, you're two adults, just go fuck. Like, what are you doing?
right. Yeah. No, and I genuinely felt like, oh, I don't know if they could. Like I mean, I obviously thought that they would because it's a romance novel, but I was kind of like, yeah, I see the dilemmas of this, especially from
Yeah.
Ethan's side. Like I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I would see why bringing something like that up would be could like be really risky in terms of like
Yeah.
the level of
His
respect.
career. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a good romance novel is that even though you know, like the comfort of the romance novel is that you know it's going to have a happy ending, but like a good romance novel will make you be like, how the fuck are we going to get there
Right.
for like
Yeah.
most of the book?
Yeah.
And I just want to say that at one point, Claire is like, Naomi, you could write like a tell all memoir about like what's it like to be a sex worker and it would be a bestseller. And I was like, honestly, like when I was an editor, I would have acquired that, but like that would be a book that I would have acquired 100%, especially because she has like a platform, like she already has like an audience, like a built-in audience. I would have been like going to the CEO being like, I need $500,000 for this woman. Like, thank you very much. Absolutely.
Yeah, Claire comes through with a lot of really good ideas like that, I feel like, throughout the book.
Yeah. I mean, Naomi doesn't, but I was like, you should. You should. And if I ever go back to publishing, you should call me.
This is a PSA. It's a PSA to Rosie Danan. Rosie, write that book.
Rosie. First, Rosie needs to write the modern intimacy course.
Yes.
That's
Can we get that released, please?
I would like that, please. Do like a master class, like an online, like.
Right. I would really appreciate that.
I would love that. And then we can have Naomi's tell-all memoir.
Right. Just, yeah, the whole thing of it. The advice given in the units of the course to me it was useful.
I was like, Rosie, how did you get so emotionally intelligent? Are you a secret like therapist? Like, where's this emotional intelligence coming from? Like, not that I like doubt it, but like I wouldn't have that. I feel like most people don't.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, but then we get Ethan and his mom and his sister. And I did get a little momentarily steamed, but then I was like immediately, this is fine. When his like sister like works in reality TV, so like she's coming back for she's coming back for a bit, and his mom's like a big time Hollywood agent, which also I would like to say, like, the fact that he comes from generational wealth does make his like, I'm gonna like change my life and be a rabbi a little bit. Like, I know he's like, no, my mom's rich, like I'm not rich, but I'm like, but
that's not a real thing. I rolled my eyes hard at that because that's not a real thing. Like, that's not what wealth is. If your mom's rich, you're rich.
Because like you're not going to be home, you know what I mean? Like if you like lose your job,
like
yeah. I was like, okay, but yeah. So he's telling. I was a little bit mad when his mom invites him over for dinner with the sister, and it's Friday, and he's like, "What about Shabbat?" And she was like, "Oh," and he was like, "Oh, she forgot about Shabbat," and I was like, God damn it! Like Ethan's family, like I was like ready to like fight them for like not taking his religion and his job seriously. But then I was like, immediately you get like, oh, it's like not that they are like actively against it. They're just like, they don't really know what to do with it. And Ethan's being like, I don't want to be a burden on them. Right. So like, he's not really looping them in as much as he could too.
Right. Because I'm also like, look, Shabbat's not that big a thing. Like, of course it's great and it happens every week, but it happens every week. So it's not like this huge thing. Like, you light a few candles, you bless in line, you eat a little challah. Like, he could just bring the materials there and do Shabbat. Like, it's not like it has to be in a particular place at a particular time. Like, I feel as though it could be incorporated. And that's on both sides. Like, I feel like his mom should learn a little bit about what it is so she would realize that, but also he could communicate like.
Yeah. I mean, his mom's Jewish too. Like, here, like the whole family is Jewish. So like they know they just don't really practice. Like they're the, you know, type of religious people that just go for like the big holidays and like that's it.
Yeah. Which is like exactly the tension. That is the difference, is like people like that don't do like Shabbat, but they should know what it is enough to be like, this would not
I think she just forgot. She just didn't think. She was like, that's not a concern. But then she like forgets the prayer. Like she's like stumbling through the prayers, you know, when they're doing it. And I was like, I was in Fiddler on the Roof, and there's a scene where we do Shabbat. I was like, I can picture what's going on.
I distinctly remember that. Yes.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Why do I keep losing my train of thought? You say two interesting things, and then like I start thinking about what you're saying, and then like, God, Taylor.
I'll try to be less interesting.
Oh, during the Shabbat, this wasn't what I was going to say. This is another thing. I was going to say they talk about eating the like brisket for Shabbat, and I was like, I'm vegetarian, but this is like a common problem, particularly for like meat in books. Like for some reason, every time it's described, I'm like, I bet that would be the most delicious fucking thing.
I've got to tell you, you have no idea, because I was finishing this book up yesterday. Yesterday was Yom Kippur. I was fasting. the last like couple chapters of the book, the amount of times that food was brought up while I was sitting there fasting, I was actively having a hard
God
time.
damn
Like,
it.
yes, like there's a lot of food in this book. There is,
There's a
which
lot.
also is
Yeah.
really Jewish, which is, but yeah, no, yeah, the brisket sounded great. I'm trying to remember what it was that they were. I'll tell you if I remember, but they were eating some other really good things in the last
Uh,
couple of pages.
but yeah, so we get these side characters. He's telling them about the modern like hiring Naomi. And his sister's like, oh my God, I love her. I'm like a platinum member on her like site or whatever. And at some point she's like, oh, like that course is really great. Like, especially because like I never know whether I'm dating someone because like I'm actually into them or because like I'm bored. And I was like maybe I'm about to expose myself right here, but I can never ever imagine dating someone because I'm bored. Like it's
Yeah,
so much work. It's so much effort. And I know, listen, Naomi gives like a whole speech about how it shouldn't be like so much work or effort, but I was like, girl, it is for me,
yeah.
especially. Like,
Honestly, I didn't even notice that line, I think, because I just like also didn't really relate to it. So I was like, okay, I'm moving on. But
yeah,
I did think it was cute that Leah is so like enamored by Naomi. Like she's like, oh my God, my brother like has this really cool friend now, kind
celebrity
of.
crush.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because at one point there's like a singles mixer, and Naomi is like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
like that girl in the corner looks cute. And he turns around and he's like,
He's like,
that's my
that's my
sister.
sister.
Shit,
Yeah.
shit,
Which
shit,
is
shit.
also amazing, like, because then they do the little dating rotation thing, and she talks to her because they're like, or yeah, because Ethan and his sister are on one side of the circle, obviously, so they don't face each other, and Naomi's on the other side. So she like has a like speed date with his sister, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Don't look over there," like,
He's like, God wouldn't be that cruel, would it?
right?
Which is great. Which was
Yeah,
great. But yeah, so basically she agrees to do it like out of spite. And I like that. I like that she chooses to do most things out of spite.
right. I think also like if you can see how it's also like a defense mechanism, and then like sometimes it fails.
Yeah, so Naomi gives her first lecture and it goes great. She's like, wow, I love this. There's like 5 people there, but she's like, this is fucking awesome. But
Hmm.
then she's like, actually, I can't do the rest of this lecture series because it may make me feel like I have community and like friends, and I absolutely cannot allow that in my life.
Right.
I
She kind of
cannot
like
risk that.
gets scared. She kind of gets scared about it. Yeah.
Support? What is that? Like, I never heard of her.
Oh, and we also forgot to say that the reason that Naomi wants to do the lecture series is because they were like her and Ethan like met at that like teacher training workshop something
Yeah.
thing. And like she was talking about how she really wanted to take her platform of Shameless, like the sex education website
Yeah.
slash online learning platform, and do live lecture. And so Ethan was like, "Oh, come do these live lectures at my synagogue." So like she also like has stakes in this, and that it's like the
Yeah.
first time that she's ever live lecturing. So I feel like kind of part of the reason why she back was trying to back out was because she was like, "Oh shit, wait, like this is actually hard."
Yeah. Oh, that's what my note meant about. I wrote a note that at the beginning, I was like, listen, like Naomi's right about academia being shitty, but I'm getting a lot of secondhand embarrassment right now. And I was like, why was I getting a lot of secondhand embarrassment about her not being able to book like talking about
Oh
universities?
yeah,
And I was like, oh, it's because just now I was like, it's because she gives the big monologue. She stands up at the conference and she just
yeah.
monologues for 5 minutes about like all this. And I was like, girl, you're right, but like, oh,
She does a lot of that. Yeah,
I
yeah,
feel really uncomfortable for you right now.
yeah, yeah. And she's also like, "No institution would ever have me, whatever, whatever." So Ethan saying, "My synagogue will have you." She at first she was like, "No way," but then it happened, and she went.
Yeah. But now she's going to back out. And we get a classic romance scene, which is, oh no, I have something on my shirt. And so now we must interact semi intimately so that you can get the stain out for me. Classic.
Right.
We love it. He gets pen on his shirt. I don't know how it happens. um,
I don't
and
know
she
either.
like starts trying to get it out and they're like, you know, close. And she's like, oh my God, I'm touching his chest. And he's like, oh my God, she's touching my chest. And like, they're both just like spontaneously combusting a little bit, but they're rudely interrupted by an old man. One of the many, there are many old man side characters. They got very confused in my head.
Was it one of the bored people?
Maybe. So there's Ira, Jonathan, and Maury.
Yeah, so
Maybe it was Jonathan's the dick. So
Jonathan's the dick. Ira's the other guy on the board who's kind of nicer but still difficult. And Maury is like a homie. Maury is like he works at the JCC or something.
He's just there. He's always there being cool. Funny.
Yeah. I liked Maury.
I liked Maury. But yeah, Jonathan is there and like they talk outside the office, but they don't close the door. And so like, you know, as soon as this happens, you're like, okay.
I think Ira is the one because Ira comes to Ethan first and is like, there's gonna be an issue with the fact
he comes to
like,
but no. But this conversation is Jonathan because Jonathan starts saying some like misogynistic anti-sex worker things, and Ethan is like,
no, yeah.
Let's put a stop to that. Shut the fuck up. You're not going to talk about her like that in front of me. And at first she's like, oh my God, he's defending my honor. But then he says something and she's like, oh, he would defend anyone's honor. But you know what? Yeah. I still appreciate it.
Right. Yeah.
I still like it. And this is when she decides not to back out of pure spite. She's like,
oh yeah. Then she digs her heels in and is like, you know what? Actually let's show them a thing or two. Yeah.
You're like, oh, you don't like that? I'm going to do it 10 times worse. Thank you.
Right.
Great. And oh yeah, she's driving with Clara. So she gets Clara does like PR and she gets Clara to like do PR for the synagogue, like for the lessons and stuff. And they're driving to meet Ethan for it. And Clara turns on the radio and Naomi's been listening to like tapes about like Reform Judaism. And I was like, she's like, well, I'm just listening to it so I can reconnect with my heritage. No other reason. It's just for me.
Right.
What? Nothing triggered this.
But then she also joins the other synagogue. She like joins the class at the other synagogue because she wants to learn more, but like she doesn't want Ethan to think it's about him because they're like just professional then still.
Yeah, it's all about that. She's like, I gotta keep it professional. So like I'm gonna go into his rival synagogue.
Which is the one he grew up at, but yeah, his rival, it's like now it's like his main competitor.
And like later when he sees her, he like sees her outside. He's like, oh my God, like, what are you doing here? And like his whole internal thing is like, I mean, it's a great synagogue. I know. Cause like I went there and like I'm about to have coffee with a rabbi and like she's really great. But like, oh man.
Yeah, he's kind of like, damn, okay.
Yikes. He's like, I get it, but like I'm still a little sad puppy boy right now.
Yeah.
Naomi, like we get some of her backstory about how she was like scared of telling people she was Jewish in high school because she heard like a boy say like a slur, not like to her, but just like a general slur. And then she was like, oh, okay, it's not safe here, which was very sad. It made me
Yeah.
And then how because of that, but she also didn't feel like she was part of the Jewish community because her mom's not Jewish. And in like more conservative Jewish circles, your mom has to be Jewish in order to like for you to be considered Jewish.
Which notably is not the case in Reform synagogues. Like that's not the rule. The national reform, whatever. That's not what they say. They say if either of your grandparents are Jewish and you identify as Jewish, if any of your grandparents are Jewish and you identify as Jewish.
Okay, so my question is then, what if you convert?
You can also convert.
But like,
Converting
are you
legit?
Considered?
Yeah, if you convert, then you're Jewish.
Okay.
It's just what's confusing is that Judaism is like a religion and also an ethnicity. And so if you convert, then you're not going to be ethnically Jewish. Like you're just not going to, you might not have like, you know, a gluten intolerance. But you can still be Jewish. Yeah, but yeah, it's a real tension. I get it. I think a lot of people do feel that way. And I also think, you know, she obviously doesn't look so Jewish to people that like it would be obvious. And like I think she had blonde hair in high school.
Yeah. She has like red hair now, but yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I get how she could feel like, oh, maybe I should just not with this, especially since her family wasn't like that actively practicing.
Yeah. And I mean later on, dickbag Jonathan like brings up the fact that her mom isn't Jewish, and Ethan is like, excuse me, the national reform, whatever.
Right. Well, that's how Ethan schools him. Yeah, because he's like, actually, that's really not a problem.
He's like, I think you're at the wrong synagogue,
Right.
Jonathan. Maybe you want to go down the street.
But also, I'm like, to me, I was shocked because I was like, it's really also like, at least, I mean, I guess maybe it's different who a rabbi dates, but in general, it's not like a thing of like, oh, you can't come here. Like, it's a pretty open, the communities that
Yeah.
I'm a part of
I
are
think
pretty
it's
open. Like, it's
mostly
not,
just that they're dating. I think that's
I
like the
think it's that
main.
they're dating and also that she's a sex worker, so they're
Yeah.
extra angry. Like, I think that if she
Yeah.
was just like a regular woman who had like a 9 to 5 job, then
Yeah.
maybe he would be like, oh, she should convert. I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
I don't know. Anytime I talk about people converting, all I can think of is Ivanka Trump, and I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, I was very into that.
I hate it a lot. But now we're going to the singles mixer. I think that's after the second lecture. I'm not going to like stop and be like, and now the second lecture happened.
Yeah, no. Yeah, so she runs enemy classes. Oh, the speed dating thing. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
And nobody shows up because Ethan insisted he organize it himself. And I thought it was very funny that he failed at being a Yenta
Yeah,
for I was
exactly.
like, oh, he's like very embarrassed. And everyone, like, people keep like Naomi walks in and then his sister walks in and they're like, where is everyone? And he's like
And
telling
he
everybody,
keeps
like,
like
oh, we're just
delaying
running
it.
late.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
So but Naomi comes and like she didn't have to come, and that was sweet. And like then she kind of like saves it and like sets it
yeah.
up, and they do the little circles.
Yeah. And Ethan, they like during their like 15-minute portion or whatever, like she's like, what makes you get out of bed in the morning or whatever? And he gives this whole like philosophical speech about how he loves to like make people feel seen. And like,
Mm-hmm.
if anyone else, fictional or otherwise, gave this speech, I would want to punch them in the face because it's
Yeah.
so like hoity toity.
Like a
Not, I
hero.
don't know.
I save
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, it's so like the dramatic music swells, like he stands with his hands on his hips. But I was like, you know what? Ethan can get away with it.
Yeah, he really can.
Because like you know that he genuinely believes that 100%.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like even if you were like a little bit sus about the genuineness of it in that context, what happens later that day
Mm,
in the bar, like I feel
mm-hmm.
like that for me was what, because I feel like this is supposed to be the moment where Naomi's supposed to be like, oh wait, maybe I actually really like him, not just like, because before that she's like he's really hot.
She's like, I want to fuck him.
Right. But I feel like after the speed dating slash the bar fight thing, then she's
Yeah.
like, okay, this is like he's like a good person.
Yeah. Well, she thought he was a good person. Now
Well, like he's a person
she's
that
like, oh,
I'm
this could
interested
be
in.
like serious. Like
Yeah.
I should take this seriously.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we keep bringing up the bar fight, a little
Yeah.
tease. Taylor, what
Yeah.
happens?
Okay, so basically, like I think they're just like they do the speed dating thing. It's in a bar. And so then
Yeah.
after it's over, they're all kind of hanging about chatting. And I think that like one guy sort of starts to like try to get her attention. And because she like is in a lot of like films and like
Yeah,
adult
she's like a really
videos.
famous
She's
sex worker.
recognizable, and so I guess he recognized her, and I think he was like, "Take your top off" or something. Like he
Yeah,
was
he's like,
saying,
show me your tits.
yeah, just like really upsetting things, and she was kind of ignoring him, and then like, do you remember exactly? He said something that like really like she froze. I
Oh,
don't remember.
he's like, everyone's already seen them anyway.
Oh yeah,
And she gets a flashback to when her shitty ass high school boyfriend, who needs to be flushed down the toilet and also prosecuted for sending around nude pictures of a minor. He sent the nude
child
pictures
pornography.
that
Yeah,
she sent him to the whole school.
right. And so she freezes when that random guy in the bar says that because she's like brought back to that really traumatic thing that happened to her. And so she's just kind of like sitting there. And then Ethan sort of is also there and hearing the whole thing go. And he sort of jumps in.
Yeah, because she's the whole time she's like, don't get involved, like don't do it, like it's
Yeah.
not worth it. But
Like
then
I
once
can
she
stand up.
shuts
Yeah.
down, he's like, I'm ready to fight.
Okay. Yeah. So he's kind of like, you need to go, basically. And then
No,
eventually,
they go outside to fight. Like
well,
it's
no,
very
I
clear
feel
they
like he
leave to
says
fight.
something that I think he says something. It seemed to me like he accidentally signed up to fight this guy. Like he said something
Oh,
like, we need to go outside or like you need to
yeah.
get outside. And then he follows him out and said something like Ethan didn't know why he was following him out, and then he realized that he had like set this thing up where he's not supposed to fight him.
Yeah, the guy's
So he like doesn't want to
like
fight him.
bobbing on 2 feet, like has this. He's like, "Let's go!" And Ethan, I love it. He goes out to fight this man, and then he's like, "I don't want to fight. I just really want to recommend him therapy and teach him why he should respect women." And he keeps trying to be like, like, would you ask Bruce Willis to walk across broken glass with his bare feet because he did it in Die Hard? No. So why are you asking?
Yeah, he's like trying to give like helpful learning metaphors for this guy to understand like what informed consent is.
Very drunk guy too. Like this guy is like very belligerently drunk.
But wasn't the guy kind of like, oh, okay? Like I feel like he kind of at first was like,
yeah, he got it. Well, Ethan was also like, dude, like I'm gonna press charges. Like so I'm gonna call it cops.
That.
Like,
yeah, he finally got through to him because he was like, I'm gonna call the cops on you. Like, do you really want this on your record? Like, I thought you said you were looking for jobs, like blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And like that did seem to get through to the guy, where it was like maybe for a second they're not gonna have to fight. But then
they're gonna go away. But then the guy says something about Naomi. He's like, "What's her pussy like?" or something like that. And Ethan's like, "That's it." And he like swings around, but
fully missed.
And then Ethan was on the ground.
Yeah, gets punched in the face, ends up with a black eye. The classic defending her honor situation.
Yeah. And Naomi's like, "That did it for me. Like, I just came a little bit." Absolutely. Like he gets punched while trying to teach this guy how to respect women. Like she was like, "Why is this the hottest thing I've ever seen in my life?"
Yep. And then I feel like she ends up driving him home. Oh, she gets him drunk.
She's like, normally, like, to dull this kind of thing, like I would fuck someone, but like I can't fuck him. So like we're gonna do the second best thing. Like give him tequila shots.
Yeah. And then she gets him really tipsy, and then she drives him home, and then she's like, "Oh, I kind of like him, but I like don't want to take advantage of him while he's drunk because I'm the one who got him drunk."
Yeah.
And he also like doesn't drink a lot, so it was like
he's like a lightweight. But yeah, their faces are like close in the car because she's like, inspecting his bruise or whatever. And then he's like, "Can you help me find someone else to date?"
Oh my God. This was the craziest. For me, this was the craziest part because I was like, what? Like,
but it's like a panic response. Like he's like later, like we get a whole thing where he's like telling his sister, he's like, I don't know. She was so pretty and I was drunk.
It's crazy because so he's like, "Can you help me find someone to date? Like, I think he was trying to say like, I think I want to get back out there and start dating, aka I want to date you."
Yeah.
But then he got down the wrong side and ended up being like, can you help me find someone? And she's obviously crushed.
As he's getting out of the car, she's like, "Don't get your hopes up," or like whatever. And he's like, "I've had my hopes up since the day I met you." And she interprets this as, "Oh, he can't wait for me to find him a girlfriend. Not he wants me to be his girlfriend."
Yeah,
like, no, you guys are hot dummies.
They were, because then multiple times, because then later they meet and she's like, "Okay, well, like I'll help you describe your ideal woman to me." And he's like, "How can I say things without her immediately realizing that I'm talking about her?" And I'm like, "Or you could just tell her it's her." Like,
well, he does tell her that he doesn't actually want her to find him a girlfriend, but then she's like, "No, I'm gonna do it. You deserve love." And he's like,
but he doesn't tell her why. He doesn't tell. Yeah, he says, "You know what? Actually, never mind." And she's like, "Well, no. Like, if you want to do that,
we're doing it."
And then he's like, "Okay," because his sister was like, "You should really just tell her the truth. Like, tell her that you want."
He's like, just call her right now and be like, "Hey, I didn't mean that. Do you want to go on a date sometime?" And he calls her and he's like, "I'm on a boat. Bye."
Yeah. He really epically failed on that.
I can relate. Absolutely.
So then she's like looking for dates for him. Oh, and then there's the softball thing.
Yeah. Wait, but right before that, he's like, in the car ride home, he's like talking about how his mom's an agent and like how he doesn't want to use his like mom's connections to like fill the synagogue or whatever. And like, I really appreciate, like I understand like not wanting to be involved in nepotism, and like he makes a big stink multiple times that he doesn't want to like take congregants from other like synagogues. Like he just wants new people. And I was like, but this feels very eerily similar. to the trope in billionaire romances, which is a subgenre, Taylor, billionaire romances, as
God,
you might guess.
not gonna be for
Because
me.
listen, who doesn't want like some rich guy comes in and like makes all your wildest dreams come true? Like,
I'm not gonna lie that I haven't thought about something similar, not with a
yeah.
guy, but I don't know if I'd read a book about that. We'll see,
So
maybe.
there are a lot, but the billionaire romance is so often, and this is so irritating. And I'm not alone in finding this incredibly irritating. So I don't know why authors keep putting this in the book, but so many times he's like, "Oh, let me pay off all your student loans," like to the girl, or he's like, "Let me like pay your rent, or like move in with me because like you can afford
Yes,
like your
yes,
rent or
yes.
whatever."
You say
And
yes.
or he's like, "Let me buy you this nice dress," and she's like,
Yes.
"Oh, I couldn't possibly. I couldn't
No.
accept his money.
Are you
He'll
serious?
the thing." It's so common, and
No.
it's framed every time. It's framed as a way to make it like clear to the reader that like she's not like other girl, like she doesn't want him, his money isn't important to her. And I was like, no.
Take that money.
I was
Take
like,
that money.
especially there is no way to be an ethical billionaire, so the only ethical thing here is to take his money.
Take that money, at least you know what it's going to. You know, like get your car, get your dinner.
Pay off
Take
your
the money.
loans. I was like, you can love
Pay off
him.
your
I
loans.
listen, if you tell me that you love him for him and not just his money,
Mm-hmm.
that like I'm fine with that. I'll
Mm-hmm.
believe you. I
Especially
don't
if
need
it's
you.
a secret billionaire situation. Especially if it's like a I didn't even know you were like that when we got together kind of thing. Because then it's like, yeah. Even if it's not though, I'm
I
kind of like,
guess,
it's
yeah.
okay. Like people can give in different ways. People have different things to give. Some people have a lot
Yeah.
of time and energy. Some people have a lot of interesting, fun hobbies you can do with them. And some people have a lot of money to spend on
Maybe
you.
maybe his love language is gift giving.
Gift giving. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with
It's love
that. I say take
language.
the gift. Take the gift. If he's
Take the
offering,
gifts.
take the
Anyway,
gift.
yeah, Ethan was kind of, I was like, this isn't quite as bad as the like, no, I couldn't possibly accept his money to pay off my student loans. But I was like, it's close. I was like,
It's
you're toeing the line here, Ethan.
Yeah, yeah. Well, also because I mean, I see what he's saying. I think it's a little different in that it's like, yeah, you wouldn't want like bought congregants because then it won't actually be like a community. But if he's talking about just like using her connections to get more people to
Yeah.
know about the synagogue, then I'm like, people come if they want to come. People are not going to be
Yeah.
coming to synagogue. Like, it's not like she's going to be
Yeah.
paying people to come.
Yeah. Why can't you just be like, yeah, my son's a rabbi at this synagogue? Like
Right,
they're
come if
doing
you
cool
want.
things, you know, like,
Yeah. I guess
yeah.
maybe that's not who he wants in his community. Maybe.
Yeah, well, he's like, I don't want people who are just obsessed with appearance or whatever. But then
Right.
later, the synagogue that Naomi goes to, the one that he grew up in, also has like
Mhm.
famous people that go to it. Like it's a big time synagogue.
Right. But he's still
And
like, I like that. Yeah.
he's like, no, it's not like they're like cool. Like they're still really like Naomi constantly is like, no, it's like, you know, it's pretty big
Hmm.
and like well funded, but like everyone's really nice. And like, so I was like, what's the truth, Ethan?
Mm.
Which is
Now,
it?
now's the time to also bring up the numbers thing about this whole book, which is that I'm like, I don't know how big these people are thinking that reform congregations are, but like at the end, it said something about like 2,000 people signed a petition for him to be reinstated as the rabbi. I'm like,
Yeah.
2,000 people at a congregation is insane to me. I have never heard of that. Like,
Well, it's not necessarily 2,000 people every week.
right. No, 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 of course, of course. Like I feel like maximum though, like on the high holidays, maximum 500 people will come and that would be a lot of people.
Hmm. But in LA, in a huge city, like
In
isn't
LA,
LA the
yeah.
most populous city in the US? So
Yeah,
like,
I'm still like there's enough Jews, there's just so many synagogues. I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe I'm not understanding, but to me,
that was a lot.
it's a lot. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
But
I guess I'm comparing it, and I guess it's not really comparable. I'm comparing it to, I'm just thinking of like the church I grew up in, like had to build a new building because it had so
mhm,
many people. And like the auditorium can fit, I don't know, probably like almost our high school class, probably about 500, like 400 or 500 people. And it was like,
right,
it always used to be full, like 3 services a week. And then like for the Christmas services, like they have to do like 6 like
right.
services because like so I was like, I feel like that's like, that could be 2,000 people.
I do feel like one thing that maybe, and like maybe this is not an actual distinction, but to me it seems like one is that I feel like churches are just generally like they get bigger than synagogues because like part of the thing
Yeah.
about a synagogue is like the small communities feel of it. And so like
Uh-huh.
I've never been to like, for example, a mega synagogue. Like I don't think that necessarily
Do they
exists. In the same way like
exist?
a mega church, you know, like
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I feel like if it is 2000, that is like peak. Like that is one of the largest. Because like
Yeah.
I go to one in Philly sometimes and there, you know, there's like
Yeah.
300, 400 people at like high holiday services. But like
Yeah.
on the day to day, I don't
Yeah.
know. We'll
Well,
see.
it could also be like 2,000 people signed the petition. They don't all have to be like official
They could be from the other
member.
synagogue too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
leave leeway. But I'm just saying that that's incredibly successful
You're like,
by
that is
my
a
understanding.
popular synagogue.
Right. I'm like, now you're actually probably one of the largest ones in LA then.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
sure, go for it. Go off.
Clara is really good at marketing, Taylor. She's really good at PR.
She
Okay.
is. She is.
And he's hot. So, like,
Right. Well, that, yeah, that actually really will do it.
which, yeah. Which, speaking of him being hot, now that he did the speed dating thing, all the like Jewish moms in the United States think that he's like eligible, and he's like, my phone has not stopped ringing with like pictures of like eligible Jewish women.
Right, right. Yeah, he's like being courted. People are like spotting him on the street. They're cornering him after services. Like it's great.
Yeah, I love
Except that
it.
he hates it. Like
He's like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm ready to date one person.
right, right.
It's this woman. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's super funny. But one of those things where he's getting cornered is after like the Friday night service, like they have like a social hour, like or whatever, like
Mm-hmm.
for at his synagogue. And he like we get a description of it being like, oh, like it's a good way to like catch up with friends and like unwind after like a long week, like in
Oh, this is
preparation
the
for the
Oneg
weekend.
Shabbat. The Oneg Shabbat. Yeah.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was just like after, like, you know what I mean? Like we did the Shabbat and then like,
It's that.
okay.
Yeah. It
Okay.
is that. Yeah. I think they called it the Oneg, which is interesting because I've heard that word but not used like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
sounds
Okay.
cute.
But I was like, honestly, like in our capitalist 9 to 5, Monday through Friday hellscape, that makes so much more sense
Right.
than Sunday service. Like it makes so much more sense to like start out your weekend with that, like, whatever, like spiritual unwinding.
I think it's amazing. I mean, yeah, that's literally why I do Shabbat sometimes. But also, yeah, it's really nice to like go to services, eat some good food, hang out with people, and then like Saturday you're supposed to chill basically all
Yeah.
day.
Like it makes much more sense to start your weekend like that than to like
Yeah.
start your week like that. Like
Yeah.
that's just, but honestly, that feels very much like Christianity in
Yeah.
terms of like, yeah, you're supposed to like base your whole week off of this rather than it being like something that like helps you unwind. It's supposed to be something that like stiffens you up in
Hmm.
terms of like fortify, quote unquote, fortifies you against the like temptation of the world or what, I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. Different. That's different.
Yeah. 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 Oh, and I don't know when he talks about this, but it's sometimes he's at some point he's talking about physics and religion. And he's
Hmm.
like, yeah, actually, like I like them for the same reasons, because it's like exploring meaning or whatever. And I was like, I feel like for most people it would feel really incongruous, but I was like, I get it. Like that's very much like my mom has very much that same like approach to
Hmm.
physics and is like very adamant about like physics and religion like being compatible and like not, you
Right.
know. And I was like, small world.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked that he had like a rational, like he was able to like rationalize, like make those things like make sense for himself in that way.
Yeah. Okay. Back to matchmaking. Leah, his sister, comes in and she's like, hey, Naomi, his ex-girlfriend from camp will probably be at the softball league, so maybe you should join his softball team just to
Right.
scope things out, you
Good
know.
job,
Just
Leah. Good sister.
I was like, excellent. She doesn't even suspect it. Wonderful.
Right.
And they're like bacon, like challah bread at the same time. I was like, this
Yeah.
another delicious thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I want some challah bread right now.
Yes. Oh, I remembered the food that I was reading about yesterday during Yom Kippur, that it was the Chinese food that she brought him. It was like she put a piece of broccoli on her fork. Like, it's like, no.
You're like, I want some lo mein.
It was like fried garlic and onions. Like, it was very detailed. And I
Yeah.
was fasting. So, yes. Okay, yes. But so they're making challah bread, her and Naomi and Leah, and then
Yeah.
Leah's like trying to basically be like, Naomi, spend more time with my brother, but like under the guise of you making a match for him.
Which we love. We love meddling side characters. Yeah. So Naomi's at the softball match, and Ethan is like, oh, I really don't want you here because
Mhm.
you don't know how to play softball, and I really don't like to lose. And I was like,
Right, which is also like
same.
an insane reaction.
It's really embarrassing, but like,
Yeah. He looks really hot. He looks really hot.
oh,
He's like really
baseball
noticed that.
pants do great things
Yeah.
for butts.
Right. And then she's like coming out, and then he's like, yeah, no, you don't know. He was like, he didn't know that she didn't play. And then he
Yeah.
found out, and he was like, oh,
Oh no.
maybe not.
Meanwhile, the rest of his team are like octogenarians, but he's
Yeah.
like, we've been trading and they're very spry.
It's like Maury's on the team. Maury is like, from my understanding, in my picture, a 65-year-old man
Yeah.
with a limp. Like,
Yeah.
he's not.
Yeah. But he's teaching Naomi how to swing a bat, but he's like
Mhm.
doing it demonstration wise instead of the traditional like rom-com,
My
like
hands
he wraps
behind
his
you.
hands around.
Yeah.
And she's like, why isn't he making this a rom-com moment? And I was
And it's
like,
like,
yeah,
because
Ethan.
he's trying to win. He's trying to win the game.
He's like,
He's trying to
absolutely.
actually teach you how to swing this bat right now. He's not trying to like, because they also developed the bunt approach where he's like, okay, you're actually gonna just have to bunt the ball. Like, not actually hit
Yeah.
it, just hit it a little bit. Because she's like, I'm a good runner. Like, I'll
Yeah.
still win for you.
Yeah. So she uses her sex appeal. She does like a whole like
Yeah.
introduction. She distracts the pitcher, and then the pitcher like throws really badly. And she's like, heck yeah, like runs to first.
Oh, and then he's up
Yes.
and he hits her with the ball.
Oh, which he's been worried about this whole time. He's like, she's gonna get hit by a ball. Then he hits her with the ball.
Yeah. So then and then he runs to her instead of running, and she's like, "You idiot, stop, like run the bases. Like, let us." Yeah, that was really, yeah.
I loved it. And later on, she's like, I thought you were obsessed with winning. And he says, I am, but I'm more obsessed with you.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's also kind of the moment where she's like realizes like,
She's like,
oh, he does like me.
Yeah. Especially
Yeah.
because they lose. They lose, and he doesn't even care that
Right.
much about it because he's like, you need an ice pack immediately.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So they finally confess. They drive to the beach for some reason. Then they make out, and they finally are like, yes, we are going to be in a relationship.
And they're gonna
We're
do
gonna
the
date.
intimacy experiment. This is where the book is named.
Yes. I was like, we have the title.
I literally noted, oh, this is the name of the book, was what I wrote down.
Yes. I was like, wow, this is late coming in, but I appreciate it because you don't always get the title just like randomly
Right.
just thrown
Right.
in. And both of them, but like the confession scene is so long because they're both, and honestly, like she's so convinced that she's unlovable, but he's like
Right.
so aggressively committed to loving her. And like I love the scene, like when she's like, no, and he's like, absolutely not. Like I'm gonna give you a hug right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Count.
Yeah. So then they're like embarking on this whole mission of like, the plan is like, they're like, how do we do this? What do we do? And then they're like, we'll just like follow the lecture series, as everyone should.
Which is great. So the first thing they do is they go on a first date in public, and she gives him like a list of restaurants, and he picks like the worst one. And she's like, oh no, it's a bad sign. But then he's like,
because it was a test. Also, it was a test. Like, she was literally like, I'm testing you.
Yeah. But yeah, then he's like, I picked it because it's the closest to your house, and I didn't want you to have to like commute. And she's like, oh, what?
She's like, was not a factor.
I have the 404 era. I have been bamboozled.
Right. Which, if anyone has ever lived in LA, you know that that's a level of kindness that's like actually unseen.
Yeah.
Like, when people ask me to go on dates near where I live, It's like 10 plus 10 immediately, because yes, it is such a horrible thing to sit in traffic at rush hour.
Yeah. Even in New York, I saw this Twitter thread, this X thread, a while ago that was like someone she was like, yeah, like this guy, like we were gonna go on a date, but like all the bars that he picked were like in Brooklyn near him, and like I live in like Washington Heights or something.
Right.
And she
It's like
was
that's
like,
insulting.
she was like, I'm not going. And there
Right.
were so many people that were like pressed in their replies, being like, he probably just picked them because like those are the bars he knows, like blah 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 blah.
It's
And I
like,
was like,
well, look for bars near her.
or just like in the middle. You know what I
Yeah, in
mean?
the
Just
middle.
at
Let's meet in
least
the
pick the
middle.
halfway point. And I was like, y'all don't understand. Like, you guys don't live in cities. Like, you drive 10 minutes to the nearest Applebee's, and that's where you
Right.
have all your dates. Like, you don't understand. I don't want to go an hour.
That's like literally a long distance relationship.
Yeah.
Like there are parts of LA where it's like if you live in this place and this person lives like that far away, that's essentially like living in a
Yeah.
different city.
Like, I could go to New York from here in the same amount of time.
Right. That you can go from Washington
Yeah.
Heights to Deep Brooklyn. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's very cute. And he's very cute. And then her ex girlfriend walks in, Jocelyn. And Jocelyn walks in with her
With
wife.
her wife. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's very awkward. And they run out and everyone runs away. And then Naomi is like, yeah, Jocelyn and I were dating and it was really great. But then she proposed and I ghosted her. And that's how we broke up. And then she was like, I ran away and I never answered her calls again.
Right. Like I fully ghosted her. And wasn't the reason that she got so freaked out because of the word always or something?
It was like triggered to her high school boyfriend who was like, oh, I'll always love you or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, the ring was inscribed with
With
like
that word.
always or whatever.
Which to me, I wrote in the margins, what in all caps, because I was like, okay, I get it. I get that that's like triggering and upsetting for you. But I was shocked that it was to the level of ghosting and then it never was addressed after the fact. Because I was like, wait, so did you actually really like her though? And you just got like really freaked out by that one moment? Or were you also just not into the relationship? You know, like you didn't want to get married.
Yeah. Insane. I was like,
Yeah.
the first time you're seeing.
It's the first
Like,
time.
you didn't even send her a breakup text. You just
Right.
stopped answering.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because it says here, it says she'd love Jocelyn and seen a future with her. It had
Yeah.
been the inscription on the ring of all things, yesterday, today, always. So it's like, okay. So you love her, you see a future with her. The ring says a word. That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it shows you the level of like how upsetting it was for her the first thing.
I mean, it is like having your nudes leaked to your whole high school and then everyone, like including the bitch ass secretary, like telling you you deserved it.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah,
Sucks.
that really, yeah. Well, yeah. So then but then they go to his house and then he makes pizza bagel bites, which is.
And I was like, listen, if a man made me bagel bites, I would not be mad. I was like,
No,
I know it's like a low
yeah.
effort meal, but I'd be like, absolutely.
That's a
wonderful.
full meal. That's a complete
Yeah.
meal.
Yeah. And then they have another meal, which is watching one of Naomi's videos.
Oh my God.
One of her sex education videos, like how to like finger someone or like how to masturbate or whatever. So it's just her masturbating. Yeah. And they both like they're not touching each other. Like basically they like his brain short circuits. He's like, I can't. He's like, I'm gonna come right now. This is insane.
I honestly think this is the hottest scene in the book for me.
Yeah.
Because then it ends with her walking out the door. They don't have sex.
Yeah.
They just sit there next to each other and like watch this video and then like it's over and then she's like, okay, I'm gonna go. But on the way out, she hands him her she takes off her underwear and puts it in his hand and walks out the door. Iconic.
Yes. And then he jacks off to them.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that was the best scene.
All the hottest, I feel like the hottest scenes are so very rarely just like the P and V scene, like the penetration scene.
Yeah, because it's like more real. It's more realistic in terms of what people actually like to do. But yeah, that was good. I was very pro that scene.
We love it.
And that's also when he makes clear that he's not going to wait till marriage to have sex.
Oh, yeah.
That's when he's like, no, I wouldn't not want to see one of your videos. I just like was being respectful and not watching them unless you would want that.
Yeah.
But it's not.
And
like
now he has free reign. So he's
video.
like all night, like on the computer. Not really. Well, I
Perhaps.
imagine that. That's my headcanon.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they keep dating and she's like, oh, I really want to bone him. And then she's like nervous about sex. So like they start to have sex one time and she's like, I don't know whether I can do this. She gets like hung up. I'm
Oh
not exactly
yeah.
sure what she gets hung up on, but she gets nervous. And then he just holds like they just cuddle on the
Yeah.
couch.
And
I was
it's
like,
cute
oh.
because she's like, "Oh, can we do that?" And then like she's like, "That's actually what I wanted to do more."
Yeah. So okay, so she gives it's the second to last lecture. It's week 7. It's about fucking. And she gives it and she goes up to the JCC. Oh, Jewish Community Center. I could not remember what that stood for. So she shows up there and there's like all these people there. There's like press there because she's like talking about sex or whatever. And then she like does her presentation and she's like really vibing. But then Ethan, like they hear shouts from outside and basically
Oh
like
yeah.
someone came and photoshopped like Naomi's porn and put like Ethan's head on like Josh's body and like just did flyers everywhere, like protest flyers, like all over.
Right, because this was the week after the week where she had the lecture where she ended up telling the class that her and Ethan, or Ethan ended up telling the class that they were dating. Because before that, it was all a secret. And then
Yeah.
somehow from that, someone obviously like that people knew then that they were dating. And then so then yeah, on her lecture on sex, the poster thing happened. And then and starts freaking out a little bit, but then she's like, no, I want to go back inside and finish my lecture. Because
Yeah.
like, I want to get you out of here.
Yeah. And the little community are all like so support. They're like, oh, are you okay? Like she's really built. She's like accidentally created a community for
Yeah,
herself.
and then like stand by the door to like guard the door for her. And
Yeah. It's lovely. And then they go home. And what do? But they have sex for the first time. And I must have missed when they went home because the sex scene begins with him getting on his knees and like eating her out. He's like, please and thank you. No bagel
yes.
bites for me, only pussy. And when this scene began, I was like, wait. I was like, when did they go home?
I
Are they
also
in the
had a
JCC?
they like really like wrapped it the fuck up quickly because I also was like, wait,
Wait
is
a
this
second.
happening right now? I just like thought there was gonna
Yeah.
be more fallout from the incident, and instead it was just a sex scene.
Yeah. I mean, there is in terms of like it making them both realize like what the stakes are.
Yeah.
But then, okay, so in this sex scene, I would just like to point out that we get a tease of butt stuff that never happens. And it is my ongoing complaint when authors talk about butt stuff and don't follow through
Wait, but yeah, you're right. It wasn't followed through on fully, but in the
ever.
epilogue, no, in the epilogue, there is something. There is something in the epilogue about he's like, we can try that thing we've been talking about.
Yeah. But they don't do it. It's not on page.
It's
It's
not
once
on
again, it's a
page.
tease. At what point, like someone strokes someone's asshole and like that helps them come. I don't know which direction it is. But yeah, there's no but stuff. I want
Yeah.
anal. You're telling me Naomi doesn't have a strap on? Lies. Also, at one point, she was like, she's like, oh, he has such a great ass. Like, someone's getting spanked
She
later.
talks about his
And I
ass
was like,
all the
when?
time. Yeah, all the
When?
time. She talks about his ass. Like it's like
Rosie?
in every sex scene or every time she's checking him out, it's like, and his cute ass is in
Yeah.
there.
Listen, Rosie, they're bet you need to write 2 more books. I need these bonus scenes. Okay. Let's get it together. Let's get it together.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait, okay. So you also we'll have to circle back to this. I don't know where the cats come in, but relevant to the sex scene is also the cat metaphor. Did you catch that?
I did not.
Oh
What's
my
the cat
God.
metaphor? Oh my
I'm
God.
so excited to tell you this.
All right, read from the
So
text.
I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure it's yeah, I'm pulling this out. I'm pretty sure it's after the weird thing, after the whole incident with the lecture series, and then they go back to Ethan's house, and then he's really upset, and she's like, okay, you know what? Like, you know how you sometimes explain things with a metaphor during a sermon? Like, I'm gonna try to do something like that. And then she's like, once
Oh.
upon a time, and then he's
Yeah.
like upset about the once upon a time. And she's like, okay, once upon a time, there was this cat, and she grew up in a nice cat home and had everything a cat would want. But then one day she met a boy, and this boy was very mean to her. And she figured that all boys, all people were probably mean as well. So she decided to get tough, grew out her claws, learned to fight. She let herself become mean too. And then he's like, the poor cat. Anyway, it goes on. And like, yeah, she's basically analogizes herself to like a cat. And then she's like, but then the cat learns to cuddle. But then like sometimes she still scratches the boy just to see if he'll still cuddle her.
Yeah.
The cat.
Aww.
There is a cat.
I do remember that now. For some reason, I didn't process it. I was just like very into that. I think because I'd so firmly established from the get-go that Naomi was a black cat. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's already been established. I don't even need any more evidence. Like, I already know he's a cat, but excellent. We got a whole cat metaphor. We love to see it.
Yes, it's in there.
So the next morning, Naomi doesn't have salt, which is insane. Why doesn't she have any salt in her house?
Yeah, it's pretty wild that she doesn't think that it's an issue.
She's like, I just order takeout all the time. And I was like, I know for a fact that takeout always comes with little salt packets. Do you just not keep the packets?
Well, she did say I might have a little packet. She did say I might have a little packet. But you know, I've dated people, I've spent time at people's houses who don't cook. They still have salt and pepper. I've never encountered a no salt and pepper household.
I just feel like butter, milk, salt and pepper, those are like the staples.
Milk might be pushing it, but butter, salt, and pepper.
Milk, some sort of cream or creamer or like something to put in coffee.
Right.
Something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty low.
But basically Naomi's like ready to commit. She's like, I want to be with this man forever. And she's like hinting at it, but like Ethan is being a little emotional baby and being like, I really want a future with her, but I don't want to make her life hard. So like I can't tell her at all. And he's just being a little self-sacrificing baby. And listen, I can respect it, but also I'm like, get your head out of your butt because nothing else is in there.
Yeah, and she's like, oh, the fact that he doesn't want this now means that like he must not actually like me, because before he said he really wanted to have like a wife and kids, and now he's not saying it. So that must mean that therefore he doesn't like me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is fair. I get that.
Yeah. So now it's time for the big third act breakup, which I didn't remember happening. I thought this book was one of the rare ones that doesn't have a third act breakup, but alas, it does. And basically the board is like, Naomi, we're getting threats because of her. Also, her mom's not Jewish. Also, she sucks. And you have to break up with her or we're going to fire you. And he is like, you can't fire me because I quit. And he storms out. And I was like, we love a principled man. And yet he comes back and he is like, I quit because they wanted me to break up with you. And she's like, I'm going to break up with you then.
Yeah, she's basically just like, absolutely not, no, under no circumstance. Because this is also her biggest fear the whole time about them being together, was that it was gonna affect his job.
And he's like, I love you. And she's like, no, we've had a good run. I'm gonna go.
Right. Well, at first she's like, okay, do it then. And then he's like, I'm not breaking up with you. And then she's like, okay, bye.
And she's like, okay, I gotta do everything myself, I guess.
Yeah.
Making her seem much more like nonchalant about this than she is in the scene. She's
well,
like,
she kind of, I feel like in the scene she was kind of nonchalant.
Her words are, but internally she's like, her heart's breaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Internally she's like devastated.
Yeah.
And then so devastated that her friends are like, you need serious help. And then Clara is like, I made a list of things to help you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we get this. So it's been a recurring thing that her old high school asked her to give like a talk about sex education. And she's like, no, I hate them. Right. And then they finally reached out to Clara, and Clara's like, so I said that you would do it. Here's a plane ticket. Naomi's like, well, at least she sprung for first class.
Right. I mean, honestly, I'm very pro Clara in this whole book because of that. Because I'm like, you're a good friend. Like you saw the need. You met the challenge.
We love to see it. Yeah. So she goes and she gives this talk. She's still very sad. And Ethan is a sad boy. And they're all sad people being hot dummies and not being together. And she goes and gives the talk. And she snaps back at that mean secretary who was mean to her.
Oh, yeah. Because the secretary's like, oh, so you went here? And she's like, yeah, I went here. And my ex-boyfriend leaked all these new photos of me. And I walked into the room to the office to hear you calling me a slut on the phone
and telling me, like, saying I deserved it.
Right.
And the secretary's like, oh, and she's like, bye.
The secretary has nothing to say about that. Yeah.
She's like, fuck you. Yeah. And then she goes up on stage. She's like, actually, fuck all y'all. And she does the like last lecture of the series. And she's like talking about the future or whatever.
Yeah.
And all the kids are inspired. It's like a very much like, and then everybody clapped. Like, because all the kids like take out their notebooks and start filming.
Yeah. Because it's also a thing, it's about like how to break up with someone or how to deal with a breakup. It's like the last lecture. And so I feel like it's like the tips that were given, the list of things to do that she made about like what to do during a breakup. I was literally like jotting stuff down. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
that
this is
sounds
good
good.
advice.
Yeah.
And then she's like, she has an epiphany. She's like, actually, I'm gonna go back together with Ethan.
Well, and she gets the email. She gets the email from Ethan. Well, from the listserv. Ethan sends an email to the listserv being like, I'm doing the last lecture series at this bar. And as
Yeah.
she's on stage, she sees the email and then she's like, I gotta go. And like it was the
Yeah.
end of the lecture. So she bops out and then presumably she flies back to California and like shows up while Ethan's giving the lecture.
Yeah. And he's
at a
giving like a
bar.
big speech about
Right.
how he loves her, basically, but in like
Yeah.
metaphors. And then they get back together. It's very cute. And then because this is a romance novel and it's got to be a full HEA, in walks Ira, and he's like, guess what, motherfucker? You can have your job back.
Quit. Jonathan resigned.
He's like, I was like, hey, maybe we should consider reinstating the lecture series because we got a bunch of new people and that was actually a good idea. And Jonathan quit
Resigned
in protest.
So he's got his job. He's got Naomi together. Shit is good. And then there's the epilogue where they go to Josh and Clara's wedding, which I now understand as like more meaningful for people who read the first book.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
find out that Josh and Clara get married.
Oh yeah, because they go to their engagement party, and Ethan like sneaks in and starts washing dishes.
Yeah,
he's like, it's cute. So annoying to like wake up to dirty dishes after a party, so I just want to help out.
Right. Like, yeah. For context, like he literally goes to the engagement party of his girlfriend's ex-boyfriend / former co-star performer
/ person that she's described as the best sex of her life in numerous interviews.
Right. And he just goes and he has a wonderful time and meets all of her friends and is charming and cute and then does the dishes.
And then later he's like, so challenge accepted. I'm gonna give her the new best sex of her life. And he does.
Right. And he does. And then and he believes her when she says it.
Yes. Well, because he's like, I know what good sex feels like. Like, I know he's like, you can tell when a woman comes versus when she's faking it if you're actually paying attention. And he's like, I know that I just rocked your fucking world. And that's the end. Oh, they're engaged in the epilogue.
Oh, yeah, they are. They're revealed that they're engaged. Yeah.
But they brought nary a butt plug to this wedding. Okay, time for the Catskill.
I do feel like this, it's not cat forward, I would say. Like cats don't come across in much of it. But like I said, that one metaphor with the cats was pretty key because it was like basically her being like, I am a cat. Like my entire personality, like my whole walls up, like I strike first. But actually I'm cuddly, but like it takes a while to cuddle me. Like she is a cat. And she said that. So I wouldn't say it's like, I wouldn't put it as like, I think it's got to at least be
it's like definitely mid.
4. Like it's in there.
There is an alternate version of this book in which she's a surprise shifter at the end.
Right. If cat vibes also count, I would give it like a 5. Because I feel like her whole thing
I'd say cat vibes also count.
The cuddling incident, she's like, oh, when we had to cuddle, it's like, like that's like
it was very cute.
Do. Yeah, I would give it a 5. I would give it a 5.
Okay.
There could be more cats. There could be more.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of cat language. I feel like I agree with 5.
You agree with 5?
5 makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Taylor, would you like them to be able to find you anywhere, or would you like them to never know where to find you ever? Up to you.
They can find me. They can find me on Instagram, I guess. Sometimes I do post things for the masses on Instagram. My Instagram is taebae65, TAEBAE 65. It is a public Instagram, so that feels fair.
I'll link it below.
Yeah.
Do you have any articles? Have you published any articles that you want people to know about?
You can be on the lookout, actually. For my legal scholar piece that will be published in the Duke Minier Awards Journal for Gender and Sexuality in the Law. It is about
very exciting.
it is about queer and trans foster youth of color.
Okay, so that's where you can find Taylor. You can find us as ever at We Read It One Night on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook, at We Read It Podcast on Twitter. And you can email us, we read it one night at gmail.com. Be sure to check out our Etsy shop, Evelyn Adelaide, where you can find bookish fandom and, most importantly, sapphic apparel. Thank you for listening. Godspeed, comrades.
Godspeed. Godspeed.